To go here. Looks like we're live. Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the English Danny channel live stream. I'm Dr. Don, and I'll be here with you today for a little bit of English learning fun. All right. So today I have several different segments prepared based on events from history. So, and each of the segments gives you a chance to learn some different English words and phrases. So let's get started. Our segments are This Day in History. One is about Helen Keller. One is about Hurricane Audrey. And one is about the first downloaded song. All right. And don't forget to leave any questions or comments that you might have in the chat, and I will address those at the end in our fourth segment, which is responding to viewer comments and feedback and questions. So if you've got any questions and comments, now you can start posting them now. All right, well, let's start with our first segment, June 27th, This Day in History. And we'll start with our first This Day in History. We'll go chronologically, meaning in historical order, earliest first. So 1880, June 27, 1880, a woman named Helen Keller was born. And this is a woman that we learn about in the United States because of her remarkable accomplishments in overcoming disabilities. So Helen Keller, when she was, I believe, 19 months old, caught a mysterious illness. And that illness left her blind and deaf and unable to speak, so mute. And for several years, she was basically unable to communicate, in her own world, many ways. So due to this illness, and her family tried different things to help her. But eventually they hired a woman named Anne Sullivan, who came out and was able to, over time, gradually teach her how to communicate with others using her hands and feeling vibrations and things. The famous episode that turned it around for Helen Keller is so her tutor would write things on her hand, write words on her hand, and she poured some water on her hand, and she was feeling this cool water, and then on one hand, and the tutor was writing something on the other, and something sparked, and she suddenly realized that what was happening on her left hand was the name of what was she felt on her right hand. It was water. W-A-T-E-R. And then from there, she wanted to learn more and more words and began to learn more and more how to communicate. So even though she was blind meaning unable to see, and deaf meaning unable to hear, and mute meaning unable to speak, she was able to communicate first with her hands and signing words using sign language, which is a way of communicating using hand signals. But she eventually did learn to speak and gave motivational speeches around the world. Actually, she traveled to 35 different countries in her life. And there was a play about her life called The Miracle Worker. And a miracle is an incredible event, an impossible or almost impossible event. And it's a story about how she learned to communicate with others. And she later learned to communicate through lip reading, reading lips. But she read lips with her hands by putting her hands on people's lips and sort of feeling the words that they were saying. That's kind of incredible to think about to me. So she's an interesting figure, an inspirational figure for a lot of Americans. Inspirational figure means a person who inspires others, a person who makes others feel more confidence and feel more hope that difficulties can be overcome, that tragedies can be turned around, that life can be have positive results. So even if you have a disability, and in her case, pretty extreme disabilities, you can perhaps overcome them. Yeah, so that's what happened. She was born on this day in 1880. Now let's go to our next segment. Our second segment is about 1957, June 27, 1957. A hurricane, Hurricane Audrey, hit the U.S. coast of Louisiana and Texas. Coast, by the way, that word coast means the part of land that borders on the sea, borders on the ocean. Call that coast or coastline. And so the hurricane, which is a big storm, it was a Category 4 hurricane when it hit. If you don't know, the United States has a system of ranking hurricanes according to their strength. There's 5 levels. So Category 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 5 is the highest, and 1 is the lowest. So a Category 4 storm is pretty powerful. Usually when a hurricane hits land, it's not as powerful as it is over the sea. But in this case, it was pretty powerful. And at the time, it was one of the deadliest storms in American history. So it killed between 400 and 600 people when it hit land, making it one of the deadliest natural disasters in American history. So what is a natural disaster? That's a phrase you can learn as well. A natural disaster means a major damaging event that resulted from natural forces or natural processes occurring on the earth. So if you imagine a natural disaster, something that happens by nature, then there's a man-made disaster, like a war or a bomb. And that means a disaster, a damaging event that caused by human beings. Somebody made it happen. So natural or man-made are 2 different kinds of disaster. A disaster is some damaging event, some terrible thing that happens. And Hurricane Audrey, that's another detail you can learn, is that hurricanes often get names so that we can keep track of them. And people will typically remember them according to their names. And the names, if you don't know, the name always begins with a letter of the alphabet. So Audrey, letter A, that means it was the first named storm of that year. So if you get letter B, that's the second named storm. So a storm has to reach, I think, Category 1 before they give it a name. Otherwise, it's just a bad storm. But once it has a hurricane category, it's a major event. And so it gets a name. So and usually A, B, it gets an A name, then a B, then C, then D, so on. I remember when I was growing up, we had a Hurricane Hugo hit. And that might have been a Category 5 when it at some point. But anyway, it hit my city, even though it was 200 miles inland. It was not on the shore, but it hit pretty hard. So I remember that hurricane. And with the name Hugo, that was pretty late in the season. H, I think it's 8. All right, so that's also this day in history. June 27, 1957, good old Hurricane Audrey. All right, now let's do our third segment about this is an event in the internet history, 1994. So that's kind of early on in terms of the internet. I had been using the internet for a couple of years at that point, but it was still kind of new. And there was a rock band called Aerosmith, and they let fans download one of their new songs for free. It was the first time a band had done this, made one of their songs available, a new song that is, available on the internet to be downloaded for free. And if you don't know what to download means to transfer data or a file from one computer to another. So in this case, downloading it from some server somewhere onto your personal computer, or they didn't have, I don't think they had cell phones at the time that were capable of storing songs. I don't know if they did, but they definitely had cell phones, but I don't know if they didn't have smartphones yet. The iPhone was still a long way away. So in 1994, they allowed this. And this is an early example of almost what would be file sharing. File sharing means sharing files or sharing data between users over the internet. Transferring files. Transfer means to send or to give from one to another. So I'm going to transfer data from my system to your system. You can download it from me. So in this case, it was legal file sharing because they were allowing fans to do this. But not too long after this, there was a service that let people share files, and it was later shown in court to be illegal. So there was I think the service was called Napster, let people download all kinds of music files from one another's computers. They were file sharing, but the artists wanted to make money, so they shut that down. All right, so you could also say that that event in 1994 is also an early example of what became called e-commerce. E-commerce. Commerce means trade, but e-commerce is electronic trade, electronic commerce. And often in English, we use that E prefix, the letter E with a hyphen and then a word, to refer to internet dealings, to refer to things that happen over the internet. So there's e-commerce and e-trade. Sometimes there's retailers, which means shops that sell things. And then there are e-tailers, which means online shops that sell things. So this was a good example of e-commerce, where in this case, a band was making a product available. They weren't charging for it, but they were making it available. So it was kind of an example of early e-commerce. And that first example happened in 1994 on this day in history. All right, so those are little segments giving you some different English words and phrases about different things. And if you have any questions about anything that I just said, or any general questions that you want me to address, then I'll be starting the fourth segment here real soon. But before I start the fourth segment, let me remind viewers that if you want to learn more English, you can check out some of the videos that we have available on the English Danny channel, where I and Danny and Sarah and John have all kinds of videos that help you learn English easily and we hope quickly. All right, so please check out our videos if you want, and let's take a look at questions that we might have in the chat, questions and comments in the chat. So I'll check the chat here and see what we've got here. It looks like Alyssa Marie is the first one. So I don't know if you've noticed, but sometimes when people post comments, like on YouTube videos, the first person will sometimes say, first. So, and in this case, Alyssa was our first, and she said, hello world. And she says, referring to Helen Keller, saying, I'm blind too. And she, meaning I think Helen Keller, she is an inspiration. Very good. Inspiration. By the way, inspiration, that word, so spire means to breathe. In means in, so to breathe in, inspire. So it's something like, it is like breathing in of a special spirit or a special force that's being breathed into you, is a way of thinking about what inspiration means. So it's like it came into you, like the breath almost. So that's what inspire means. And let's see, we've got some hellos from different viewers, so let's address those. We've got Hafez Abdo saying hello, and Halim Mehrez saying hi, teacher. And Jory Red, hi from Iraq. Good to meet you. I lived in Iraq for a couple of years, not too long ago. It's good to hear from you there. And Hortensio Bondo gives a wave. And then a name I can't pronounce says hello. A couple of names I can't pronounce. And then Jalil says hi. Hello to you. Lolly Lolly, and a longtime favorite saying hello from France. Bonjour. Bonjour to you as well. And Chris Lee, I love hearing stories. Okay, I love hearing stories as well. So I hope you enjoyed the stories I had for you today about this day in history. And then Sohail Khan says hi. Blurta says hello. Muhammad Duraj says, please speak clearly, and day by day we will improve. Yes, day by day, or you can also say step by step. We can improve day by day, step by step. These are two good phrases to know for meaning to improve gradually over time. Keep a diary and keep a journal. Do those have the same meaning? Okay, so here's our first general question. Do those have the same meaning? It's a very similar meaning. Usually, I I think of a diary as more of a personal things about your emotions, and a daily journal. It's still kind of private, but you might show somebody a journal. Some thoughts that you put in a journal might get turned into ideas that you make into a story, or that you make into a business idea. So sometimes people keep a journal and there's a practical result. Not always. Whereas a diary, it's just there for you to record your private feelings and emotions about things. So there is a little bit of a difference between the idea of a diary and the idea of a journal. But there's also a lot of overlap. And some people, their personal feeling is that there is no difference between a diary and a journal. Some people would say, I think of them as the same thing. Okay, so that's a good question. And then Melissa Marie's giving a shout out to 90s kids. I think that's probably a reference to the Aerosmith 1994 comment. I also have a shout out from, I was a 90s kid myself. What's the difference between perturbed and disconcerting? Okay, so in this case, perturbed, that ed ending indicates this is a different part of speech. So perturbed is something you feel, but you could say perturbing and disturbing. Perturbing and disturbing. What's the difference between those? Disturbing is a more general term, and it just means something that kind of confuses you or unsettles you in some way. So let's say if you imagine that your normal life is just going forth usually in a calm way, something that's disturbing is interfering with that calm flow. Okay. I'll give you an example of things that can be disturbed. Water, it can be disturbed. So you might have flow, but there's a disturbance in the water. The water has been disturbed. The perturb can mean to disturb, like it can mean to break the flow of something. But perturb, I'm not really sure if I can't think of a counterexample where it doesn't have kind of the same meaning. It's just that I would say perturbed. Okay, I can give you an example. Perturbed or perturbing has a feeling of being annoyed. If you're disturbed, you're not necessarily annoyed. You just had a flow and it was disturbed. Maybe it's unsettling. Maybe you feel anxious about it. Maybe you feel nervous about it. But if something's perturbing, it's kind of bothering you. So, because I just thought that my mother would sometimes say, "I'm perturbed by your constant making of noise," and she didn't mean disturbed. She meant perturbed because I was annoying her. So, I think that's probably the biggest difference between those two, is that feeling of being annoyed is something that definitely has attaches to the word perturb. Okay, so there we go. Maybe that's a good answer there. Okay, so perturb. And by the way, those words work similarly. So perturb, disturb, that's the verb. It disturbs me, it perturbs me. When you have the feeling, you could say, I'm perturbed, I'm disturbed. And there's also a disturbance. That's a noun, meaning a thing that was disturbed, that disturbed things. There was a disturbance here. If you ever see the movie Star Wars, Ben Kenobi says, I feel a disturbance in the force. So the force, the normal flow of life, something has happened, some terrible event has happened, and he felt the disturbance. So that's the noun form there. Okay, let's check out some more comments here. So we got a hello from Cancun and more comments from others. Okay, let's see. Let's check out some of the new comments. So we got some highs and hello from Sabir Khan and Iftu Ahmed. And how can we teach English as a second language? Suggest some tips. Well, okay, there's a lot of different tips that I can give, but let me give a couple of general suggestions that might make it helpful. So this is for somebody who wants to teach English as a second language. I would say one thing that you can do is to try to make it fun. Try to make it something that somebody enjoys. Because things that we enjoy, things that are fun, we're more likely to engage in it. And the way to get better at English is to practice it a lot. And you're more willing to practice a lot if you find it enjoyable. So find a way to make it fun when you're teaching English as a second language. There are different kinds of language games that you could play. And you could check our English Danny video series, which has some different examples for things you can do to make learning fun. That's one suggestion. And another suggestion is encourage people to make a habit of practicing English. Because again, the way you get better, as one of our viewers said earlier, is step by step, day by day. So make a habit of learning English. And if you can make it fun and make a habit of it, you will definitely get better. You will definitely improve. Okay, so let's see some different comments here. Okay, Nokami Pa says thanks. Alyssa Marie's giving us thanks. And okay, we have a question. Can you elaborate on the point? What's the difference between appreciate and respect? Okay, so that's a pretty good question. And these are two verbs, although respect can also be a noun. Like I could respect you and I can also have respect. So yeah, respect, appreciate and respect. What is the difference? So there is with these are there is some overlap here. Appreciate has the feeling of being grateful or being thankful. So you could say, for example, I appreciate your help. Now, in that case, you're expressing gratitude or thankfulness. You wouldn't say, I respect your help. That would sound strange because while there is some overlap where the words both have a feeling of recognizing value, so you could say, I appreciate this person, I respect this person, both of them meaning I recognize the value of this person. So there's some overlap there. Appreciate has more of a feeling of I'm grateful, I'm thankful, and respect means has the meaning of recognizing something or someone's status. Okay, so respect, to give you an example, is something that you show for grandparents or your parents. So you should, so there's a saying, you should respect your parents and respect your grandparents. Now, it's also nice to appreciate them, meaning to be grateful to them and thankful. But when you respect them, it means you recognize, oh, this is an important person in my life. So you have respect for them. You respect them. So that's the difference there between what's the difference between appreciating and respecting. Okay, so we get a hello from Bangladesh. Hello to you as well. So is ruminating a bad thing? Not necessarily. No, not really. It's more, I would say, because it does mean to consider, to think something over. It can be a bad thing if someone is spending too much time thinking and not enough doing. So like if there's an action that you want someone to do and they're busy ruminating, you might say, well, we want you to get to the action, okay? So in that case, it would be a bad thing, but you're rarely going to use it as in that case. One thing that's a little bit different with ruminating with this word. So because you said ponder and contemplate, so those are more about thinking as well. Ruminating is also related to ruminant animals like cows. And in this case, what do cows do? So if you've seen a cow in the field, they bite off some grass and then they chew it. And technically that is ruminating. Okay, they're chewing over something. And from that action, we get the idea of ruminating, meaning to think over something. You think over it the way a cow chews its cud. Chews its meal, and it's chewing it slowly and deliberately. Okay, so that's the origin of it. And if you think about it, and someone is ruminating, you could use the word in a way to mean they're just sort of slowly pondering something. And in that case, it could be kind of like criticism. They're thinking too slowly or taking too much time. So I would say in that case, it could be used to be a bad thing. But in general, we don't use it to mean a bad thing. We just mean to think something carefully. That's it. All right. So Louis Bernal says, hi from Barcelona. I've been to Barcelona. I had a great time there. So it's good to hear from you. Listeners want to know how to pronounce two different words. Pff, and ugh. That's the difference. Pff, pff is a sound that you make blowing out your lips. Pff, a dismissal. That's a dismissal. Pff, not important. And ugh is a feeling of disgust, like you saw something nasty. Ugh. Ugh. So that's how you do those sounds. Hello to you as well, Sukanta Chakma. And what's the difference between sympathy and empathy? And R and L sounds, please, sir. The R and L sounds, so ra, 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 and la, 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 la. That's the difference there. So the sound, your tongue comes in a little bit. For the L sound, la, 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 la. See how my tongue's moving there to make that sound? So that's the difference between those. Okay, now sympathy and empathy. What's the difference? So these are both about feeling. So there, that root word, that P-A-T-H-Y, that root means feeling or emotion. Pathos. So both of them are about feeling. Empathy, though, means that you are feeling or experiencing someone else's feelings. When you are empathic or you feel empathy, you feel the same feeling. Okay. If you feel sympathy, it means you understand someone's feelings. You don't feel it yourself, but you understand it. You are sympathetic. You feel sympathy for. So empathy means feeling the same emotion, and sympathy means understanding and appreciating and respecting the emotion. Okay. So that's the key difference there. Empathy, you're actually feeling it. Which you might have had that experience before, where sometimes you see something and you feel it too, or you feel the emotion of another person. And then sympathy just means, oh, I understand. I have sympathy for you. Okay, so hello from Indonesia and hello from Pakistan. Another person saying hello from Bangladesh. Good to talk to all of you. And then another question: what do you mean by the expression "comes to play"? Okay. So there's two expressions, and I thought about this for a second. There's an expression comes into play, meaning it becomes relevant, but comes to play is a more modern slang expression, and it means that this person is ready for the competition. That person came to play, meaning they came ready. They came prepared to compete and to succeed and win. So that's the idea, is that it's expressing the idea that someone is prepared, they desire to win, they really want to win, and maybe they will. Okay, so you want to be someone who comes to play in most situations. Okay, so that's what that expression "comes to play" mean. He came to play today. He was ready to win. All right, so hi from Haiti. Hello. What is the difference between yet and so far? It hasn't happened yet, and it hasn't happened so far. Okay, so the difference there is a difference of what you're thinking about. This is kind of a okay, so if something hasn't happened yet, it might happen in the future. Okay, so when I say yet, it means that hasn't happened yet. That means it could happen. When I say that hasn't happened so far, I'm actually looking back at the past and saying, up until now, it hasn't happened. So with so far, you're sort of looking back in time, and with yet, you're sort of looking forward in time. That's kind of the difference between those two words. So, oh, that hasn't happened yet. You're a little bit worried about the future. That hasn't happened so far means up till now, it hasn't happened. There can be some overlap with those two words as well. So they're not, it's not a hard and fast. You can't use them. Okay, so that's the answer there. And okay, now if something comes to play, that's one expression. Coming into play meaning it's becoming relevant. It means it's becoming a factor in some way. So if something comes into play, that means it's going to have an effect. It's going to have some kind of use. I'll say, for example, if you're sitting at home, in general, your situational awareness, meaning being aware of your surroundings, will rarely come into play. It won't be that important. But if you're driving a car, your situational awareness will almost always come into play, meaning it will almost always be relevant or have an effect or some use. Your awareness of your surroundings is very important when you're driving. So it comes into play when you're driving. Okay. Respect means admiration. There is a lot of overlap there, because things that we respect, we usually also admire. But can you respect something without admiring it? Yes. For example, one of the best American football players is Tom Brady. I respect him as a quarterback. I don't admire him because he plays for teams that I don't like. So I wouldn't say I admire him because his ability is used against me or against the teams I root for. So I don't really feel admiration, but I do respect him because he has great ability, right? I have to respect his ability because it's pretty good, but admiration, no. Okay. So there's a case where you can respect without admiration. And can you admire without respect? I think that's impossible. I don't know. That's an interesting one to think about, because to admire means to look up to something. And how can you look up to something if you don't respect it, see it as elevated? So I think that's the case where you have to have respect to have admiration. But if you have respect, you don't necessarily have admiration. That is a key difference there. What's the difference between alternate and alternative? So alternate as a verb means to go back and forth. So I'm going to alternate between talking on this side, talking on this side. I'm alternating. So that's alternate. It means to change back and forth. Alternative is a noun, and it means another option. Okay. If you can't watch our live stream on Facebook, there's an alternative. You can watch it on YouTube. That means you have another option. So that's the difference there. So alternate is the verb, meaning to go back and forth. There's also alternate and alternate. Okay, so that if you pronounce the word differently, spell the same way, alternate. In this case, an alternate is an alternative person. It's a specific person who is your alternate. So in that case, you would say, if I can't do the live stream on Monday, we have an alternate. Sarah will do it. Okay, she's my alternate. I could say she's the alternative, but that seems kind of impersonal. So I'd say, no, Sarah's our alternate. She's our alternate live streamer. Okay, so I think that might have been what Mashuk Ali was thinking of, was not alternate the verb, but alternate the noun. So an alternate and an alternative. An alternative is a different option, but not necessarily a human being. And an alternate is usually a person. You're a person who will sub in for you, replace you if you can't do something. Okay. Which is correct? My phone keeps acting out or acting up. The correct one is acting up. Acting up meaning behaving badly. Acting out is something reserved usually for people. A person, usually a child, is someone who acts out. So because there's an idea that the person is behaving in a way that they know is wrong, but they're acting out. the phone doesn't know. Your phone doesn't have a consciousness, really. But it could act up, meaning it's not behaving properly. It should be making my phone call now, and it's not. It's acting up. So that's the difference there. How to use not enough and to. Okay. Not enough means below the amount you want, and to means above the amount you want. I don't have enough coffee. Oop, I had too much coffee. So there you go. That's the difference between not enough and to. That's how you use those. Asmatullah from Pakistan gives us thanks for providing a pleasant environment to learn English. I enjoy your facial expressions. Yes, I have a very active face. My students often enjoy it and laugh at it, but that's fine. It's all part of making English fun. So that's what I'm trying to do here. All right. Well, let's see here. What's the difference between fit and suit? That doesn't fit me. That doesn't suit me. Suit means has more of a feeling of it's not to your taste. That doesn't suit me. That doesn't suit the situation. It doesn't. And then fit means it's not quite right. There is some overlap there. There are times when you would say that doesn't seem suitable or doesn't seem fit, and you could use either one. But there's a slight difference there. So a lot of these are kind of obscure differences where if you misuse it, usually it's not a big deal, I would say. The person probably knows what you mean. Okay, so what's the difference between unless and until? Unless. Okay, so this is a logical distinction. Similar to, it's similar in some ways to not enough and to. So unless means there's a condition that has to happen. I won't go unless you go with me. Okay, so if that condition, you going with me, is not met, I won't do this. So I won't do A, or I'll do A unless B. So there's some condition that you require or that is required. And if that condition isn't met, then something will happen or it won't happen. That's what unless means. So I'll give you a couple of example sentences. You will not pass this test unless you study. Okay, so unless. So that the condition is study. You must study. If that condition is not met, you won't pass. But if it is met, I guess you will pass, or you could. Okay, so that's how you use unless. Now, until means up to a certain point. So, for example, you would say, I will go with you until 10 o'clock. Right. So we'll go somewhere until 10 and then I'll leave. You have until 2 o'clock to take the test. That means there's a deadline of 2 o'clock, and until then, up to that point, you can take the test. So that's the meaning of until. Okay. Not enough and to. Somebody gave me that one. What's the meaning of indigenous people? Indigenous people means the people who are native to a place. So the people who they and probably their ancestors going back for a long way have always lived there. Those people can be described as indigenous to that place. That word indigenous has the word genous, and it's related to genes, genetics, meaning your DNA, the thing that makes you you, basically. So that's what indigenous means. All right, so we got a few more hellos. What's the difference between, I like this question actually, because this relates back to my English professor days. What's the difference between genre and plot? So that word genre, G-E-N-R-E, it looks like in English it might be genre, but we took it from French and we retained sort of or pretty close to the French pronunciation of the word genre. Genre means the category of a story. Like, for example, science fiction genre or a historical genre, a romance, a comedy. These are genres, right? That's the category of the story, meaning what kind of story is it? It's a romance. It's in the romantic genre or the romance genre. Plot, the plot of something is the story of what happens in a particular movie or book or whatever. The plot is what happens. It's the story of what happens. Okay, so there you go. The genre is what kind of story it is, and the plot is what the story is. That's a good way to think about the difference. Share my lecture schedule. Well, guess what? It's summertime. I don't have a lecture schedule right now. I'm on vacation. So, you mean the live stream schedule? In that case, the live stream schedule. We have a live stream every Tuesday afternoon, our time. And you could probably check our Facebook page and YouTube page for more information on that. Sarah does a live stream every Tuesday, and then I do a live stream every other Sunday. So every other Sunday means not next Sunday, but 2 weeks from now, and then 2 weeks again. So every other Sunday, I'll do a live stream. Okay, so the live stream schedule is like that. So that's mine is every other Sunday, and then Sarah goes every Tuesday. What's the difference between other and another? What's the difference between other and another? The other person is okay. So there is a little bit of overlap here, but another means one more. There's another person. The other person means a different person. So I'm trying to think of some good example sentences. Well, this one's kind of hard to explain in a short way. Okay, I'll give you one example. So let's not go to this restaurant. Let's go to this other restaurant. Let's go to this other restaurant, specific one. Let's not go to this restaurant. Let's go to another restaurant, any other one. That's kind of the difference there. But there's also a lot of overlap in meaning. They usually just mean the same thing, except that usually you're going to use another with something like a single noun, another friend, another place, another restaurant, and other you use with plurals, like other people, other places, other countries, another country, another place, another person. Hear that? So that's a big difference between the two, but there's a lot of similarity in meaning. Okay, so we have a few more comments here. That's great. Okay, we're getting some love from Pakistan. That's great. Camellia Bay saying hello. We're doing a meeting, sir. And oh yeah, there's a video. I didn't even know we had this video. Teacher John did a video specifically about the topic of another and other. That's great. Okay, so you can actually check out this video here to get more in-depth information about the difference between another and other. I think John has some different examples in that video as well. All right, very good. All right, that's excellent. Excellent. All right, so we still have some of those. And all right, let me just do a couple more questions here. Let's see. Let me pick one that I can answer pretty quickly because a couple of these are hard to answer quickly. In my book, both are the same. I think they are. Compressive and compromise. Let's see. I can't answer there's a question. Please elaborate on the difference between in and on in the song Bed of Roses. But I can't do that because I don't know that song. So unfortunately, I don't know the song. So I can't tell you exactly what the difference is. Okay. All right. So we get a hi from Myanmar. Great. Interesting. Good to see you there. And share some links of some English courses to improve the English language. Well, Actually, yes, we can do that. We can have some links to some of our English Danny channel videos that you can use, certainly to help if you're teaching a class and you want your students to improve their spoken English. You can have them take a look at one of our videos and maybe have them practice some of the example sentences that we use in our videos. That's something that I like to do sometimes, is give example sentences for my students to practice. This helps. They know that they're using a correct sentence, and they're also getting good pronunciation practice. So that's my recommendation there. Okay, great. I think that's about going to do it for this week's live stream. Thank you all very much for coming, and thank you for watching our videos. Be sure to check out Sarah's live stream on Tuesday, and I hope all of you have a great day. All right.